Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Historian Presents. I'm Tyler, and I'm here solo for the moment. Darren is working on something at the moment, so he'll be joining us here in the broadcast as we go along. It's been a heck of a week. I started out this week by going to Columbus, Ohio to do a talk there on Emory Upton, of course. I love being able to travel and talk about Upton and share the good news on what's going on in the world of Emory Upton. On the way home, I had planned on a very interesting stop. It was given to me as advice, really. I didn't have any intention to stop here initially. And then I learned a little bit about the site. And the site that I stopped at was Johnstown Flood Historic Memorial or National Memorial. And being able to stop there of all places, that was incredible. And the reason it was so incredible was the story alone really spoke out to me, and it was something that I wanted to further understand. And thankfully, I had the chance to visit the site because many of you know that follow me in the Civil War field, that every Civil War site you visit helps tremendously in understanding the story, especially if there is preserved land and you have a map to use to better understand that, because nothing in the world helps like being able to see the ground physically. And the same was with Johnstown. The story itself, I read David McCall's book. I believe it was actually his first book, and it was fantastic. And reading that, I'm able to really comprehend the story alone just simply from David's writing. And it was, again, fantastic. And I highly recommend, if you want to learn more about Johnstown, at the end I'll give you a couple of recommendations, but that's definitely top of my list. Anyways, after reading that, and just finished reading it as we embarked on my trip there, I was able to go and visit Johnstown with a little bit of knowledge as to what happened on May 31st, 1889. And from the visit and even just leading up to it, I've done a little bit of research. So I'm hoping that the research I've done and visiting and then doing some more research on top of that is suffice enough tonight for an episode. And I'll wait to get into the nitty gritty of all the fun stuff until Darren comes on. He said roughly 20 minutes recently, but I have some filler to do talking about the trip itself and just kind of talking about what it was like to go visit the place. So on the way back from Ohio, we decided to stop at Johnstown. And arriving there, the visitor center was a little different. It was in the shape of a barn. I really like what they did because I didn't know what they were trying to pull. But right at where the visitor center is, so the visitor center is not actually in the city of Johnstown. The city of Johnstown is roughly 14 miles upstream or in the valley, away from where the national park would be today. The national park is sitting on a place known as the South Fork Dam properties, of course owned by the South Fork Hunting and Fishing Club at the time in 1889. The park today encompasses that lake that would ultimately be the cause of this flood that just ravishes Johnstown. And one of the unique things I really like is the Unger House is still standing. Of course, we'll talk a little bit more about the Unger House as we go on with the story of the flood. But where the Unger House is sits the National Park Service Visitor Center. And the Visitor Center is built to replicate one of the barns that was on the property of Colonel Unger, who would have been a very instrumental person in this story on the day of the flood, May 31st of 1889. So the Visitor Center itself, again, is set up to be pretty much a replication or a rebuild of the Unger barn that was on the property. That was a very unique thing. And if I can make some room here on my video and picture files, I'll actually go ahead and upload a picture for you really quickly for those that are watching online. That way you can kind of see here. Give me one moment. Because, of course, the visitor center itself is very unique, and that's something I really enjoyed about the trip there, too, was one of the, I guess you would call it a diorama. I don't know if this is technically a diorama or not, but in the visitor center, they have this depiction, and it's very, of course, a very powerful one at that, and it's a depiction of the wreckage of the flood with a survivor clinging onto the house. It's supposed to be Victor Heiser, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong for those that know. It's really, again, a powerful thing as soon as you walk in to see something like that. And I think I have it here. I do. Cool. So give me a moment. Go ahead and... I took a picture of this when I was on my trip, but I just figured I'd pull a stock image at the moment. save us a little trouble here. All right, should be up and ready. Well, while that loads, again, walking into the visitor center, that's the first thing you see, and it would be this here. That is a very powerful thing to walk in and see as soon as you go in there. Of course, underneath there's a great set of exhibits, and there is some photography taking of the aftermath of what the flood would have looked like in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And again, this is supposed to be a depiction of Victor Heiser holding on to one of the wreckage pieces there while there's a tree clearly smashed through more wreckage. Some barbed wire wrapped in the scene there as well, which of course we'll talk more about the barbed wire as we get into this later this evening. But Johnstown, again, was one of those powerful sites that just needs to find some focus. So I'm going to go ahead and, I guess, begin our story a little bit as we go in. So in Pennsylvania, there is this little town of Johnstown. How does it get the name Johnstown? Of course, there is an origin to every city that we talk about, and the city of Johnstown is going to be no different. Johnstown's going to be really one of those industrial centers that we talk about, especially in the 1800s, the 1880s, the 1900s, the Industrial Revolution, the robber baron era. Johnstown really kind of flourishes in this time era. This is post Civil War, so of course there are probably many Civil War veterans living about Johnstown at the time as well. But in the 1880s, Johnstown was basically an iron town, and we attribute that to the Cambria Iron Works. The Cambria Iron Works being a full swing operation at the time, just belting out different types of materials, and a lot of the materials that they're producing will end up in places like the Transcontinental Railroad, because of course at this time there's this need to reunite the West and East, or unite them for the first time by rail, and bring that rail together to make travel easier and the progress that America is using towards westward expansion more attainable. And with this comes the need to produce the iron. Obviously, you're not just going to be able to wish this iron into existence, and the Cambria Iron Works is going to be one of the major supporters of this iron. The Cambria Iron Works are situated directly in Johnstown, and there are a very serious workforce behind this operation. It arrives in Johnstown in the 50s, and in 1889, it would host immigrants. Johnstown boasts of a 30,000 plus population size in 1880s and becomes quite known for its industrial complex, because Johnstown is one of these towns that gets put right in the center of this robber baron era, where steel, iron, things like barbed wire, just anything, everything's mass manufactured essentially at this point. And Johnstown's not excluding that. It's falling into that trap. But why does Johnstown become the site of a flood? One so devastating that it takes 2,209 souls from this earth. Causes $17 million in damage. Today, that'd be $534 million worth of damage, which is quite a lot. 9/11 and the Galveston hurricane of 1900 are the only two American events to surpass the destruction and tragedy of Johnstown during that time in 1889. And now we're sitting here today going through the reasons as to why this happened. Is it man-made? Is it a natural disaster? Let's talk more about the story. So where is this water coming from? Where is the flood initially coming from? Because the rivers that are around Johnstown aren't necessarily going to do the damage that is done by this flood. There's a dam. The dam's known as the South Fork Dam. The South Fork Dam is constructed by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And initially it's constructed for a few reasons, mostly industrial, mostly for the purposes of transportation. The Pennsylvania Railroad and the canals are going to be benefactors of this reservoir, this dam that was created by damming the Little Conemaugh River. It was a fork off the Little Conemaugh, which the South Fork, and it is going to be dammed and pretty much just all done by the Commonwealth. Well, at the time of this being dammed, so we're talking the 1839 to 1840s time span, the canals and the railroads are expanding. The canals are also not necessarily being as frequented in this area as the railroads, places like the Portage Railroad, which are these huge inclined planes that get over top of the mountains that are surrounding Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania. And these are going to pretty much be the new mode of transportation and the new infrastructure that's being used. This reservoir that was just built kind of was built at the last minute, and it's hitting the last leg of what it would have been used for. So what now? By the way, this lake is sitting, and I'll show you this map to kind of just give you a good depiction. Right here where it says South Fork Dam, so we're looking on the right-hand side of the screen. The South Fork Dam, the height is 22 meters. The South Fork Lake elevation, 493. And it's above Johnstown. It's not directly on top of it. It's not going to be sitting directly next to it. So how does a dam all the way over here, 14 miles away, give or take, destroy the town of Johnstown? Again, the dam is built as an infrastructure piece, but it won't stay an infrastructure piece for long. No, it will not. After a while, it's going to sit, just kind of go through a little bit of a waiting period, and then someone's going to buy the lake. The lake we'll call Lake Conemaugh. As it is part of the dam of the Conemaugh River, it was aptly named the Lake Conemaugh. It was a public works again. It was an infrastructure piece. With Johnstown being the eastern terminus of the Western Division Canal, as well as a direct line on the Pennsylvania Railroad, to which was the recipient of the sale of the dam, which the railroad would then sell to private owners. Benjamin Ruff. Let's enter this guy. He's going to purchase the reservoir, which is considered abandoned at the time, and he's going to modify it to a private resort lake and cater to wealthy associates of his. Eventually, this group will take on the form of a club. The club is known as the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club. More than 50 steel owners, very wealthy at that, coal, and railroad industrialists will be the ones to make up this club, the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club. The lake was 2 miles long, about a mile wide, 60 feet deep near the dam. The dam was 72 feet high and 931 feet long when it became a privately owned dam. No trespassing signs would litter the perimeter of the dam. And the dam would be stocked with plentiful fish so that these wealthy business owners and wealthy industrialists can spend their time leisurely. Lake Conemaugh. After a while, the dam does start to fall into some disrepair. And when it starts to fall into a little bit of disrepair, it almost goes ignored. It's noticed. A man by the name of Morrell that works at the Cambria Ironworks, in fact, I think he's the owner of the Cambria Ironworks, Johnstown citizen at that, has some great concern over this dam and believes that it will break. And that the dam breaks, it's going to flood all of Johnstown. It's going to cause mass casualties and wreckage. But ultimately, nothing is done for this. The dam is very eloquent. In fact, they start building cottages. They, being the South Fork Hunting and Fishing Club, Fishing and Hunting Club. Yeah, this dam is kind of a pretty big deal for these guys, these wealthy industrialists. Another image here will show the dam from its exterior. After a while, the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club will actually do something kind of dangerous. And you can see it in this image here, in the image that's on the screen. And for those listening on Spotify later, there are some images that are being shown on the live broadcast. So if you go to Facebook or YouTube, you will be able to see those. And I will post links to some of the images there on both sites. But the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club had taken the top off of the dam to build a road. For ease of access, if you will. And even looking at this image, you can see clearly that water level is not far at all from the top of that dam. But life would carry on as the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club. And yet another addition will come to the club, with them continuously stocking the fish and game in that pond. One thing they're also going to do is protect that stock. And how they're going to protect that is by taking a fish trap, and they're going to place that right at the headwaters of the dam. Nothing larger than a man's fist can pass through this net. So when there are storms, or when debris falls into the lake, or anything that's on the lake bottom is swept up by something and brought to this surface, it's going to cause some clutter, and that eventually will lead to a kind of a gradual rise in water over by the dam, which after a time is going to cause the dam to break. There's no way that it's going to be able to hold once that pressure kind of just builds. And so this fish trap that's been placed here is not allowing anything to flow through. It's starting to become clogged. And again, that's there to protect the stock that the rich have purchased in order to entertain guests or even just enjoy the lake themselves. I have another rendition of the dam here. An artist rendition, which I think is done very well. Notice spillway too. Let's talk about this spillway a little bit. There's a spillway to relieve some of the pressure of the dam. Not much, but there is an attempt to relieve some of that pressure. But it's not going to be quite enough when the dam ultimately bursts. And that's because different workings underneath this dam have been taken out. There were pipes. There was a control tower at one point. Oh, I say control tower, but there was a wooden tower to observe and control this dam. All of that being removed by the club. All of that was almost structurally integral to the dam itself and needed to maintain itself so that the dam would sustain itself and not burst and send all this to the city of Johnstown. Darren is here.
Hello, young man. How are you? Sorry, I'm
Hello,
late.
Darren. It's okay to be late, man. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. I'm enjoying life at the moment. Let's put it that way.
You're enjoying life at the moment.
Yes, it's very, very pleasurable.
I'd like to hear that. Well, where you have joined in, we are just now talking about the South Fork Hunting and Fishing Club,
Okay.
who own this dam. So, Darren, I don't know, Darren, did you get to read any bit on this at all?
Not really, mate. I do apologise. I'm very, very, very. I don't really know a lot about this. No, only from what I've watched of your videos the other day, and so I haven't got a super knowledge about this. But that's hopefully I can ask you a few questions along the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That'd be cool. So where we're at now, we're just kind of talking about why the dam exists, why it's there in the first place. And the reason it's there was initially it was a part of the infrastructure of the Pennsylvania Railroad. It was going to be part of the canal. When it was built, that necessity became obsolete, meaning it wasn't necessary anymore. So it was sold off. The railroad maintained property of it, and then it was sold to a very wealthy individual by the name of Benjamin Ruff, one time congressman. And what he purchases this into a resort for the wealthy. And he kind of modifies the dam a little bit. So takes away some of the structural integrity to it, stuff that's damned to maintain itself, and it just kind of turns into a resort. They take part of the dam, as I was showing here in this image, Darren. This is actually a picture of the dam and one of the
Okay, so
houses.
that's the dam, and that's the
Yes,
town. So the town sits down just below the dam.
14 miles below the dam.
Okay, so but it looks a bit closer from there. So or is that just a property that's
That's just a piece of property on the dam.
on
Johnstown
the dam?
proper
Okay, I
will be
get you. Yeah.
14 miles upstream from
Okay.
the dam,
Yeah.
and it's situated in a valley. So like when the dam breaks, it's just traveling through. And you know how Pennsylvania's mountains are.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
going to come down at some force.
it does come down. It's going to empty out 20 million tons of water.
Okay. So going back to the dam, when was
Sure.
the dam actually originally built?
Good question. So
Yeah.
initially it was built in 1839 and I think completed in 1842. And that would have been done by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the purpose, again, of it being a piece of infrastructure for the railroad or the canals. The eastern terminus of the Western Pennsylvania Canal was in Johnstown. So that was there for that reason. And of course, again, it became kind of obsolete upon its completion. And when it became obsolete, well, then it turned into the private lake that most of us would know it as because it is bought by some of these wealthy industrialists at the time, and it's turned into their private resort. It's just outside of Pittsburgh. I wouldn't say Johnstown's a suburb
So,
of Pittsburgh
so
by
is
any
that
means.
why the dam falls into disrepair, and is that why it's eventually going to cause a problem?
Hmm. That's right.
Okay.
So it's going to be purchased by those guys, and one thing they're going to do is take away a tower that was placed in the dam. There's some pipes and culverts underneath that structurally protect this dam. There's spillways that are going to be modified. And if you see in this painting here, what I love about this painting, it shows that they have taken part of the dam's top completely off so you could drive your horse and
Oh
carriage.
my goodness me!
Do you see how the water
And
is
this is before tourism,
right?
you know. So yeah, what was that about?
And this one, look how close the water is to the top of the dam.
Oh my god! Yeah. So if you have a big rainstorm, you've got a problem.
And that brings us into why there is a flood.
Mhm.
Because, all right,
Okay. Yeah.
so there are many notable members of the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club, and one of them being Andrew Carnegie. Most people know who Andrew Carnegie is. He's a very wealthy robber baron at the time, steel tycoon out of Pittsburgh. But you got to have a place to vacation. And this was his place. The South Fork Club has been in this possession of the lake for their time. They've done what they've done. They put a fish trap up right when you were joining in. I was describing that on top of making the dam less safe and completely just close to disrepair, they add a fish trap. This fish trap is sitting on the end of the dam to protect the fish that they have personally stocked. So keep this in mind too. I don't mean to sit here and point fingers, even though it's probably a fun thing of ours to do, because historians
Well,
point
you
fingers.
always point your finger, Tyler. That's your
That's
brand.
right. That's right. But when
Oh,
it
you're
comes
great.
to this, you're going, and I'm saying you're as me berating somebody from the club. You're rich. You've got a lot of money. You have the knowledge that this dam is, for lack of a better term, it's been condemned. Okay. There have been engineers who have visited this dam and said, this doesn't work. This is bad. This is what needs to be done to it. Aw, shucks, mate. It'll be okay. We'll worry about it later. Yeah, well, we see how that goes. But instead of putting money to repairs for the dam to not only save the lives of 2,209 people 14 miles beneath you, but to maybe protect your lake so that you can continue to visit your little resort, you'd think you'd put the money to repair the dam, right?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Wrong. Yeah.
They buy more fish
Oh.
and stock their ponds.
So before you go too far into the story, because obviously I missed the beginning bit, sorry.
Sure.
What went into the construction of this? You know, who were the people behind the construction of it in the first place, and what was its original purpose?
So that is a fantastic question. And one thing I was going to end tonight with is that I planned an entire episode just on the South Fork Dam and the Hunt and Fish Club itself. I have some material to
Okay, yes, that's
research.
for another day type thing.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, we're going to talk about the dam and a lot more. This is just an overview of Johnstown and the flood, and then I want to go into
Mhm.
specific parts, just like we would do a Civil War battle. Like here's
Yeah.
the anniversary, and we're not even on the anniversary. It's just it was a new interest that I've gone overboard in.
I mean,
And
because people don't realize that water's heavy,
very,
right? And so
very.
the amount of pressure that is probably pushing on that dam, and they're not bothering to.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so take us through the steps of why this disaster happens.
Sure. So I'm going to bring us to the May 28th, 1889 time frame, starting there. Preparing for Memorial Day weekend. But on May 28th, 1889, there are some serious storms forming to the south, and to the north of Johnstown. These storms will make their arrival the night of the 30th into the 31st. They're celebrating Memorial Day weekend. Johnstown is decorated in bunting and banners and flags, and you have your Civil War veterans marching down the streets. You have speeches being made. The grand fanfare of Memorial Day in America is in full force in Johnstown on May 30th, 1889. And then it starts to drizzle. There's a storm surge moving up from Virginia, moving all the way towards western Pennsylvania. And there's another one coming from the north, coming from the lakes. And this storm is going to kind of stop just right on top of where Johnstown is, right in this valley. And so it stagnates. This storm just hovers. With this storm culminating with two major storms, Johnstown's going to see record rainfall. So not only do we have the man-made circumstances over here at the dam that are just sure to mess up anybody's day if you're in the town of Johnstown and it happens to flood, but now you have nature itself dumping buckets on this region in numbers it hasn't necessarily been recorded in. This is a new thing for Johnstown to have a storm of this magnitude. The
Okay.
lake itself will rise 8 inches just on May 31st.
Can I just stop you 1 minute? Because I've got
Sure.
like a question that's come up in my brain.
Sure.
So is this before weather? Obviously, there's no TV on radio, obviously, but
No.
so they
Telegraph.
don't even know. Firstly, the storm's coming,
They know the
but when
storm.
it does start and does stop over the town, do they realise that this could be a problem? Is there people that say, do you know what, this is going to be? Because I
There
suppose
is.
when you get heavy rain, you get flooding coming down from the mountains anyway.
You got that right. So there's already, in the morning of May 31st,
Oh my goodness!
there's
yes.
already standing water in Johnstown. So everything's starting to close. The Cambria Ironworks, which I know you weren't here earlier, that's one of the major features of this town. The ironworks are being in full swing even in 1889 because this is the producer of your iron that's going out to the Transcontinental Railroad. This is building the railroad to connect the East Coast to the West Coast. This is a big deal. So this ironworks is producing a good chunk of what's going out to those railroads there. Not only do we have places like that, but we have places like the Guitare barbed wire factory. It's a barbed wire work, a wire works as they would call it. You're making barbed wire. That's going to be a very ominous thing later on in the day. But you have all these factories and these industrial centers in Johnstown that are closing. Schools are closing. Sunday schools are closing. Yeah, everything you have in town are closing early because there's some standing water in the streets, but it's nothing new to the residents of Johnstown. This isn't the first time that the river has kind of flooded a little bit and brought some water into the streets. It's nothing like they're going to see later when the dam bursts, but it's something that they've dealt with. But there is that scare and there is that fear in a lot of the residents that there is going to be a dam breaking one day and it's going to ravage the town. But there's a telegraph, Darren. That's something you mentioned earlier. You said there's no TV, there's no radio, but there is a telegraph. And Johnstown will have warning. Take precaution. There's a problem. The dam will not hold. And I mentioned to you, there's 8 inches that have risen in this dam. Again, let's just go back to a picture of the dam. This is holding back rising water right now.
Yeah.
An earthen dam that has been ripped apart, cherry-picked for pieces. Even when it was in full force with all its accoutrements with it, citizens are still stealing lead pipe and wood and pieces of stuff from this dam. So it's never been structurally whole.
So people are stealing. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, even before the club owned it. Yeah, they were going up and taking chunks of like lead out of the piping that was up there. So
Okay.
there's that too. Going back into May 31st, Colonel Unger, who owns that house that's on the park property now, is at the time pretty much in charge of this club. And when he makes his way to the lake and sees the precarious situation that they're in, he's going to get in touch with his engineer, John Park, and put in any effort possible to try and save this dam from breaking into Johnstown or breaking and just sending water where it's going to send it. Obviously, they're not able to do much, and they know that this is going to be inevitable. It's gonna fall. So Park goes into South Fork, the town just outside of the dam, and will telegraph Johnstown the dam is going to break. Take cover, run for the hills. Just around 3:15, the dam will burst. There's only a rendition that an artist has done of what it would have looked like when it bursted. 20 million tons of water at roughly 45 miles per hour shatter through the earthen dam and make its way down the valley. The first town it hits is that little town called South Fork, just above the South Fork Dam there on the map. Our first victim will fall there. The water will travel down towards what you would see called viaducts. It was a very tall stone structure that briefly held the water. Couldn't hold it long, and it ultimately became a victim of the water, and the water started moving at a disgusting speed. So the water does a weird thing when it's moving its way down the valley. The top is almost 60 feet, 40 to 60 feet tall, this wave. Again, it's moving at that kind of speed, 45 miles per hour. The bottom is not moving as fast as the top. So if you've ever been to the beach and picture it, a big wave hits you, and you know that force of the wave, it almost knocks you off your feet and the bottom kind of sweeps you up. Imagine that hitting a city. It wipes it out. And that's what it does to its next stop, Mineral Point. The water continues to travel to East Conemaugh. Then it hits the town of Woodvale, just above Johnstown. There was only one structure left when it hit Woodvale, wiping out many houses and streets and families and villages and towns, and wiped. And then it hits Johnstown. So all that debris that came from the initial breaking of the dam travels 14 miles down this valley with the surge of 60 feet tall and 45 miles per hour, just moving down this valley, destroying anything in its path. Locomotives are picked up like toothpicks and thrown into the freaking fray. People are on these locomotives. The Day Express from Pittsburgh has stopped because there was flooding on some of the tracks and they couldn't go any further. And what do you think happens when that flood hit the freaking railroad? The water continues to move through the city of Johnstown, where families are in their homes hearing this ungodly roar. Look out their window and their home is completely swept away and they no longer know where their loved ones are if they know where they are themselves. And all this debris is just going to continue to culminate and flow through the town of Johnstown until it hits a stone bridge. It's a railroad bridge just above Johnstown, and it actually is going to be enough to contain the flood. But all the debris from that will trap itself in this. You can see the stone bridge in this picture here. Now, this photo is taken after another horrifying incident is going to break out. So you can imagine just traveling through rapid force waters, being swept out of your house or wherever you may have been in Johnstown, and just being slammed against this debris. Bodies and corpses and living souls and animals and barbed wire, choked wood, and then fire. This debris field catches fire. So for anyone trying to get out of this rubble or trying to make it away from this, you now have to fight through flames. You have to fight through other folks trying to get out. There's a story of a girl named Gertrude who was 6 years old at the time, and she lost her family in the flood and was floating on a piece of debris and lost the debris and was floating in the river, and some gentleman jumped off of a piece of safety debris he was on, jumps into that torrent, gets her, and will throw her very far to somebody else's arms and gets swept away himself in trying to save her life, but she'll remember that she was saved because of that. Johnstown was pretty destroyed, Darren.
Yeah, I'm trying to comprehend. I just can't get my head around like these people on this train carriage at the moment. It's like picking out like a toothpick, but people are inside it. I can't get my head around it.
This picture here,
it's very upsetting. Actually, it's very upsetting.
It is, and there's, we'll go more into detail about the Day Express. I mean, because I still have a lot of research I want to do, but
they don't know this is coming, do they? So can I just ask? So from the point of the dam breaking, how long are we talking till it gets to again? I know you say it's 45 miles an hour and it's going down a valley.
It took it 45.
Oh, 45 minutes.
The water would stop at places.
Mm-hmm.
And
so there must have been a roar. Was there a roar, of this coming down the valley?
It was an ungodly sound. You can see the damage in this picture here. It's just looking on East Main Street in Johnstown.
It's just gone, isn't it? It's nothing there.
No.
It looks like a nuclear bomb went off, doesn't it?
It does. This one is insane. A tree has been impaled through a man's house that is sitting sideways. How about the dam itself?
Oh, do it. Wow.
There's nothing left of it. Now, I showed this earlier. This picture is from the visitor center in Johnstown now at the park, but it shows you, it was one of the most powerful little images I've seen.
Oh my goodness me. Wow.
And it was life-size, so like that guy in that mannequin in there looked.
Yeah. How impressive is that? But at the same time, it's like, yeah.
It's not, you get excited to go to these sites and then you visit it.
Was that an emotional experience?
It was for me, very much
just
so.
by seeing this, I can imagine it being quite sort of, it's that, I don't know why, it's really sort of, yeah, it sort of made me feel upset.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? It's not a happy topic that the flood. I
No,
mean,
no.
there's so much more. Like some of the accounts
But
that I read.
I really appreciate the fact that you've highlighted, because I never knew anything about this
Me neither,
until
and it's
you
such a
mentioned it the other day, that you was going to go through, and obviously that you had this book. And wow,
2,209. That's the number. That's a
and
lot.
can you go back to tell the story about the barbed wire factory? Because it's one of the most horrendous. And if you guys at home are picturing barbed wire, yeah,
Let me see if I can't find an account of it. I've got
whoa,
some cool
that's
Johnstown stuff here, so I'm hoping maybe I can.
so again, this is 3 in the afternoon, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So this is when people are all in their homes, getting ready for an evening. I mean, there wasn't much you could do back then, was there? So you're going to be sitting around a table, I suppose, aren't you, and getting your supper ready, or
Mm. Yeah, no, you wouldn't really. You don't know what to do. You don't see
just
it
a quick,
coming.
just a quick history about the town itself. So, how long has the town been in existence, and what was it? Was it a prosperous town? Was it?
It was, yeah. So in Johnstown, right around 1813, it gets its official name, Johnstown. One of the other Joseph Johns was the owner, I believe. Joseph Johns. Hold on, I just saw his name too.
Joseph E. Johnston.
Joseph
No,
Johns. Yeah, it was
Joseph.
Joseph Johns. That was the name of the Joseph Jones. Or Joseph. Yeah, it was
Oh, right,
named
sorry,
Johnstown after a while. So it was created for that, and then when you have like the industrial, if you will, kind of start booming, and you have this need for industrial complexes, that's when you see this kind of pop up and turn into a
so it's like an industrial type town.
for
It's
100%. It is.
yeah.
It's all industrial, and
So what
that's
is
what
it doing? Is it using the natural resources from the area of, like as in the wood, timber, because it's
Yep,
up in
and
it's up in the mountains basically.
it is, and again, that
Yeah.
iron is being all sent
Okay, you
out
got
to
iron. Yeah. Okay, I
the
get you now.
the railroads that
Yeah. Yeah.
need the iron. So they're being sent and utilized in that fashion, and that's kind of a hub there because you being a subsect of Pittsburgh like that, you
Hmm.
have all the industries in Pittsburgh, and this is just stone's throw away. But a lot of the rich guys end up going to the South Fork Dam because it's so close to their cities, and everybody can kind of meet there and integrate there. But
And
I
so,
do believe the city's been in existence since roughly 1813. Joseph Johns being the founder of the city.
how many meters above sea level is this town? Do you know that? Or
That'll be on our next one too when we start diving
okay,
into
sorry. Yeah. Okay, boy, yeah. I just like to know that I like to know these little facts. It's because I find it interesting.
Sure.
I
Well,
was
yeah,
going to
and
say.
then I think what we'll do is we'll cover another aspect of this whole thing by doing the aftermath of the flood. But tonight was more of just a teaser, and
Yeah. So
Darren, I mean,
anyway, the barbed wire. Sorry, I'll
yes,
cut you off.
we'll finish here with the barbed wire story.
Yeah.
So when Woodvale gets pretty much wiped out clean, one of the features of Woodvale was that there was a large barbed wire factory at Woodvale, and when the flood hits it, that barbed wire ends up as an entanglement of the debris field. And that means that people trying to swim out of these tangled debris enough are getting mangled by barbed wire. Not only do they have to face this barbed wire and do they have to face the debris, but they're facing drowning and burning because of the fire at the stone bridge. So there are so many things that are just adding on to the horrors of Johnstown, even just on May 31st. And then beyond. We're going to have talks about Clara Barton because Clara Barton goes into Johnstown and sets up one of the biggest drives Red Cross ever does,
Wow.
which is awesome. I didn't know that. You have a really
Yeah.
cool article in
Right.
the Harper's Weekly. I know I brought it out here. I even got a copy when I was there because it was so cool. I went through the whole entire Harper's Weekly thing and just like read the reports. There's just flocking of news agencies. There's a mass donation effort from countries outside of ours to give this effort of relief to Johnstown. So it's also kind of the first instance of post Civil War a
Yeah.
huge relief effort for a town that
And then
loses
Civil War
2,209.
Civil War veterans as well. So did did Johnstown have did they raise troops or?
I'm not. We'll have to look into that and actually look at Johnstown's effort in
Yeah,
the Civil War. I
yeah.
know that the 14th Regiment Pennsylvania National Guard was activated and actually had to be a force inside Johnstown after the flood. So there was a military presence to keep order, because of course, with any natural disaster, there was some robbing going on, of grave robbing, unfortunately, and we're also going to talk about the identification of the dead, having the morgue set up and what that was like, because that was tough. There are 777 unknown buried up on top of Grandview Cemetery that overlooks Johnstown.
And what about the government's response to this disaster? That something else you're going to cover in another program?
Absolutely, much so, dude. There's a lot I want to go into when it comes to the government. Like I said, there's a whole episode done on South Fork, and I'll be reading. I've got this stuff next to me. I'm headstrong into this project right now.
Yeah.
It's a different type of history that I'm not used to covering, and it's really cool because it's something I'm really interested in about. And the more I research, the more I'm learning, and I don't want to stop. So I'm going to be on Johnstown for a bit, folks. I'm sorry if I've deviated off a path, but it's where we're at.
There you go.
And there will be more to come. But again, thank you guys for just kind of tuning in for the 45 minutes to an hour or so we've been on tonight. We just wanted to really start and kind of tease like, hey, there's this new topic that Tyler is interested in, and I'm going to go on to this tangent about what this was about and hopefully come up with some really good stories from this. So I'm really going to dig to find that human story. So I want accounts. I'm still going to pull for first person accounts and who's telling me what they're seeing, and let these guys tell the story more. So I just want to be able to get enough to give some background, and then I'm going to let the folks that live this tell their story.
Cool. And
Right.
so what was your experience like in the visitor centre? And that, did you get to meet any people that were like the people that run the place or?
Not really. Didn't have any extensive conversations. They seemed pretty busy with some stuff there, so I didn't want
Yeah,
to bother.
they're going to be, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a decent grasp as to what to do. I asked the basic questions like, "Can I get a map?" Which I've got all my maps and stuff still right here, and I got all the things I needed. I said directions, maps, and I had Marina with me, so she helped navigate me.
Yeah.
And we
Okay then.
yeah.
So, can we just can I just ask what's the accessibility like of the visitor centre? Is it a good? So, what would you recommend people go and if they're in the area, doing
Oh no,
vacation,
100%,
just go and have a look.
100%.
Yeah.
And I say she helps navigate, but she actually drove the entire trip. Just a little disclaimer for the podcast there.
There you go.
Yeah. And her reasoning was that we would have gotten there a lot later had I have driven. She's not wrong. I am kind of equatable to a grandpa when it comes to driving, so I
Okay.
appreciate that. We got
Can Marina drive to Gettysburg as well then?
no, I did. I did Gettysburg. Maybe that was
No,
why
but
she.
can she when I come over in August?
You want her to drive to Gettysburg? You don't want
Yeah,
me
so
to
we
drive?
get there quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. That works. No, no longer driving. I'm just gonna. Well, you know
You
what?
get
Actually, yeah,
get in the
that
back,
works. She's still
get
sitting
in
in the
the
back.
trunk.
You're gonna sit in the trunk.
No, you are. That's if you can fit in there.
I'm sitting in my passenger seat and I'm gonna read.
I'm only joking.
I
Shotgun.
know.
I called it first.
Still my car. See, that's what happens. What happens
I
when you
know.
enter the
Yeah.
car?
Get in sorry, I'll sit in the back. I'm joking.
It gives you a little car seat, tea bags and everything.
We're in an argument about bloody car seats. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. This is the unfiltered historian, by the way.
It is. It's to be expected on anything that we do. Darren, I don't see a British Budweiser in your hand
No,
tonight. Did
you
you have
don't,
some fun
because
this
I've had
weekend?
enough this weekend, young man.
Heard.
Yeah, I've been to a reenactment this weekend, and let's just
Ah,
say I spent an interesting evening last night in the Pirates tent. So we have a thing called Pirate Cove next door to us, and they're very colourful characters. Let's put it that way.
and you went over to the pirate tent.
Crazy, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Jeez. Well, Darren, I want to thank you for joining me tonight for the talk. Yeah, it was awesome, and I got to go for now, so that's fun.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we'll be on some more. Of course, next Sunday we have another Unfiltered Conversations.
Yeah, we'll do. And we're building up to the my visit over, and we've got lots planned.
Right? It's not far away, man.
I'm very, very, very excited. It's like I'm going to be like a kid at Christmas.
I know. I'm excited too, brother.
Yeah.
Well, folks, thanks again for tuning in to The Unfiltered Historian. This was the 1889 Johnstown Flood episode. There are more to come. Aaron will be here soon. There will be just a bunch of stuff. Just tune in, keep listening, do your thing. We really appreciate you. And we'll see you guys again on the